Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's very hard to tell everyone everything that happened, and it's actually even difficult to pick one topic or one incident to talk about. And so I might just need to start banging them out one at a time. But today I'm going to talk about the worst one, and that's what we all kind of are fixated on, and that's the discard, and what happens immediately after the discard. When they find the new supply, sometimes they already have the new supply already lined up. In my case, he had her lined up. He had met her a couple months before our discard. We were married for almost 5 years at that point. And yeah, I found out much later that he had already had her lined up, and he, was devaluing me and getting ready to leave. And when you find out about all this after, it's horrible. To know those last, few months they were planning it, but yet still acting fine with you, and still at least my narcissist was still trying to do nice things, and things like that, even though he was planning my discard. One of the reasons why I think it takes so long to get over these relationships and overcome the abuse we suffer is because, the suffering doesn't stop when the relationship ends. After this discard, after the divorce, that's almost when the real abuse starts. Because in my case, my ex-narc was very much in the spotlight. He has several YouTube channels. Our lives were on YouTube a lot. I was always behind the camera, and I guess I still am. But he was very much in the spotlight, like most narcs need to be. They need to be in front of a crowd all the time in order to get fuel and be fueled, because they can't generate it from within. They need an outside source of fuel. And if you're like me, and most people that end up with narcissists we're empaths. We've got so much extra fuel for ourselves, and we generate it ourselves. We're just fuel generators, so that's why we are such good matches for the narcs. But anyway, I digress. So when the abuse really started in my relationship was at the discard, and when he was with the new supply. And I remember, because he was on social media so much with her, he wasn't one of those people that was hiding her. She was 16 years younger than me. She was only 24, wildly younger. And so it was almost like a cliche that he went with someone so much younger. But they systematically went and did everything during their love bombing as he did with me during our love bombing, to the point where it was absolutely disgusting. I mean, it wasn't just, them going out on regular dates. They would go to restaurants that we went to and sit at our table. They would go to hikes that we had discovered together, and he would take pictures of her standing on the same rocks and same places, that we stood on to take our pictures. He systematically did the exact same, road trips to the exact same places. He would buy her the exact same items. They would they would post, evenings of them, and of course I was always watching the social media right after the discard. You really can't help yourself, and of course it's damaging, but I couldn't help it, and I know I shouldn't have, because it probably was more damaging to me, and I know that now, but so it was just watching him and her relive the love bombing that I had gone through, to the point where he didn't miss not one step. Not one. I mean, he even flew her to San Francisco and went to the Japanese tea gardens and took pictures in the exact same spot that we stood in. I have those exact same pictures. He took her to Napa Valley, and of all the hundreds of vineyards in Napa Valley, he took her to the vineyard that we liked to go to and took pictures of her in the vineyards where I stood. Like, it was so, like, I don't know, only a narcissist can dream up of that many ways to first love bomb someone and at the same time really hurt someone else, like, and everyone can argue that he didn't do it on purpose to hurt me. I'm like, that's impossible. He out of all the hundreds of vineyards in Napa, he took her to our vineyard. And that was like one of the, that was like the crutch when I saw that. I'm like, the shock and awe of it and the hurt was just beyond what any normal breakup should go through. Like, it's never ever supposed to really be that bad. And that's what narcissistic abuse is and why it's different than other breakups. Other breakups, you're with normal people and they don't think of those things to do. And you can argue that they weren't trying to attack me, but they just don't know what else to do. Every time they get a new supply and go through this, they get better at the love bombing. So he'll do everything with me that he probably, because my narc was married before, and he probably did everything with me that he had done with his first ex-wife. And he's now doing everything with his new supply that he did with me and that he did with his first ex-wife, and they're getting better at it, and they keep adding on to the technique and love bombing and the things that they can do to make it faster and better and more efficient. So, but yeah, the abuse, the real abuse for me started after our breakup. It was just a daily torture of, having to endure his love bombing, being put all over social media and YouTube channels being launched of them, and just they're doing everything you can do, I can do better attitude from her on social media. And so I think that's why I'm, after 2 years, I'm still kind of not over it. Maybe my situation, was on the more extreme end of the scale. And it's also, I think it's worse for me because he was a covert narcissist. He wasn't this over exploitive, grandiose narc. Because he was a covert, it's almost as if it's like I feel like I'm kind of shouting and trying to convince people how bad he really was, because everyone thought he was just this perfect person. It's, I felt like that now. I'm slowly, as I talk to people, and now people are a little bit more comfortable telling me their take on him. Because, I still meet, people kind of sometimes recognize me as being his, his wife. And when I tell them, I found out that he was a narcissist, a lot of people go, well, yeah, duh. Everyone knows that he's a narcissist. I'm like, well, I didn't know. And, as a supply, you don't care. Even if you knew he was a narcissist when you were with him during the love bombing stage, you wouldn't care. Because it's so amazing, right? So, but yeah, the whole world, I guess, even though he's got a lot of fans and things like that, they don't care. They love him. And, but they got haters too, I know all about the haters, and And people that are like somewhat close to me are now comfortable coming up to me saying, we all know he's a narc. And they're very sympathetic towards me, but they still can't handle how it's been 2 years and I'm not over it. And I'm hoping these recordings help, because every take on a narc and the things that happen during the relationship they're all a little bit different. And I want to give as many examples as I can about things that happened during our relationship, because you're always doubting whether or not they were actually a narcissist, especially if they're the lesser and the covert one, the introverts, the ones that don't actually, they seem like they don't want to be around people, but yet they love being on stage type thing, And, a lot of actors are introverts. Like, he was an acclaimed introvert, which makes him need the supply, I think, even more, the main supply, because they don't know how to function without it. They can't function without it. I think it would be very scary for them to try to live life without a main supply. So, anyway, there's always lots more I can say, and I'll leave them to other videos. I want to thank everyone for tuning in and listening to my take on the relationship that I had with my narcissist. And I'm hoping that these talks help other people, and I'm hoping that they'll help me as we kind of form our tribe of people that were with, in particular, a covert narcissist, because sometimes they're really hard to spot, and sometimes the things that happen in those relationships are hard to identify. So we definitely need this community of survivors post narcissists. Thanks for listening, guys.